Thank you, Hashem. Okay, this of our learning. We should have the basic English immediately. And the first time of Yichya Nassim Ben Sarah. Aaron David Alevi Ben Menucha the Lester. I'm holding by the Mishnah. And Chavtes Amud Aleph. Tell me the name again, Jimmy.
Sarah was Sarah.
Sarah Basara. Sorry, first name. Goodness. Okay, the Mishnah says, V'haya kasha yarim Moshe yadei v'gavar Yisrael. And when Moshe lifted his hands, and the Jewish people would overpower the enemies. V'chiyadav shel Moshe Isis Milcham. This is the war with Amalek. Does it say Amalek there? Or does it say Kanani? It says Amalek. Are the hands of Moshe doing battle? Are they break the enemy, I guess? What it merely means is that when the Jewish people are looking towards heaven, and they're subjugating their hearts to their Father in heaven, that's when they were victorious. And if not, they were falling. Something similar. Let's see. It says, it says in the pasuk, make a serpent and put it on a stick, a banner. And anyone that was bitten, where was this? Where were the snakes? What was the sin that they did that the snakes were coming?
They were complaining.
People were complaining. Is this the Asafsa? Or
No,
what parsha is this? Kibbutz Hataiva. And they wanted, what did they want over there? Meat?
Parshas Chukas.
Parshas Chukas?
Yeah, Kibbutz Hataiva, they wanted meat. Yeah, this was
just complaining. So anyone that was bitten, they would look up to this and they would live. Would the snake cause death that they looked at? Or the snake give life? If not, they would nimukim. Sort of sounds like they would melt. So if they were looking towards heaven, then they were healed. If not, then not. How does this come in? What are we talking about over here? How does this get into this? So the Meiri explains that it's based on the last words of the last Mishnah. It says that if someone's walking by a shul, if he has kavana, then he's yaitzer. If he doesn't have kavana, he's not yaitzer. So speaking about kavana, the intention of the heart. So now we get into this. That if you're looking towards heaven, you have that sort of intention, then that's something positive. It's another type of kavana. Yeah, in Kabbalah, kavana means the purpose of. Kavana sa mitzvah. What's the purpose of the mitzvah? What's the accomplishment of the mitzvah? The kavana is, in Kabbalah, it's a combination of this sphere with that sphere. That's the kavana sa mitzvah. That's the goal of the mitzvah. Yeah, that's not how we think about kavana though. About kavana is you think about what you're doing. Okay.
Be complete with the snakes. They get tired of traveling.
Oh, they were tired of traveling, and so the snakes come. Yeah. Somehow this became a symbol of medicine, also the snake, and they give it on doctor's license plates. Yeah, who started this? I mean, that doctors should have like hospitals and things have the snake on a stick.
It was
the Torah started it. Yeah, but where would they get a snake on a stick if not from the Torah? It must be the. Okay, yesterday in yeshiva, the Bacher said, I learned the Chumash already, I don't have to do it. I say, okay, so what does it mean that Vayelech Harana? So did he actually go to Haran, or was he on his way to Haran? And Rashi discusses, to Haran, Haran is Lechar. So it doesn't matter, this, that. So, the Bible is the most popular book. Now, you should really know it a little better. Every word. Okay. So, yeah. They don't realize the influence of the Torah. They look at it like, oh, it's just something that my teacher wants me to study. Here's Shaita B'Katan. Change the minion time. You adjusted the sunrise. Okay. Should be for good things only. Cheresh. Someone that's deaf. Usually in Chazal means deaf mute, right? Shaita is an imbecile, the katan, and a child. In mitzinas arabim midei. They can't be mitzi someone else. Yeah. Does it have to do with kavana as well? Not really. I mean, maybe the reason why they're not mechuyev b'davar. Let's read further. Zeh haklal. This is the rule. Kol she'eina mechuyev b'davar eina mitzis rab midei chavasan. Anyone that's not obligated cannot fulfill anyone else's obligation. If they themselves aren't obligated, they can't help someone else fulfill their obligation. The word mitzi means to go out or to take out. And it means to take out of the obligation, because in Aramaic it's the same. It's nafik. Nafik means to go out. So you sort of have to get used to this language of mitzi. Was I yaitza? But can you be mitzi me? It means to fulfill the obligation. It's just like a funny. Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Does that mean that you never could have been? It always has to be something that no. Meaning, let's say you made kiddush already, so you're to yourself. Now you can be amongst the others.
Very good.
Or is it the whole mitzvah, the whole concept that you have to have been, at least at one point, you have to have been, mechuyev for the mitzvah?
Very good. I believe, and we'll see on the bottom of the Amud, I believe that if you were yaitze already, you can still be mitzi someone else. Yeah, I believe that's the pshat. I think even if you made kiddush, but definitely, yeah, that is the pshat. Because if you read the Megillah already, you can be mitzi someone else. Yeah, we'll see later at the bottom of the Amud.
In the Hebrew, it's it continues on. It's
fulfilling
the
obligation.
It's
so yaitze means fulfill.
Fulfill.
Right.
Fulfill the obligation.
Right. So with the whole phrase, it makes sense. Right. You're going out of the obligation. You're okay. Taner Rabbanan. It's taught in a brisa. Kol chayavin b'tkiya shofar. Everyone is obligated to the shofar. Kayanim, Leviim, v'Yisraelim. The Gemara is going to ask on that. You don't have to really go through those details. Geirim va'avadim. Va'avadim mishuchrarim. Converts and slaves that are freed. Tumtum v'androgynous. Tumtum is like a non-developed, if the gender. And androgynous is developed both male and female. Someone that's half slave and half free. The way that would happen is he was owned by partners. We will share the slave. Yeah, this sounds like a fight happening. But one of them set him free. Yeah. So tumtum, the Gemara says, the Brisa says, someone that the gender is not developed, is not mitzi another tumtum, and is definitely not mitzi someone else. However, an androgynous, this is someone that is both developed. Androgynous is I think it's an English word also, androgynous. But I think it's called hermaphrodite because of the male, female, Hermes and Aphroditus. So androgynous, this hermaphrodite, Maitzias Minai, can be Maitzi another androgynous if you find another one. It's not so common. Avalaya Sheina Minai, but not someone that's not an androgynous, not a male or a female. A female wouldn't be chayiv anyway, but wouldn't be able to be Maitzi male.
Tumtum is androgynous.
The tumtum is someone that is underdeveloped, so they can't tell if it's a male or female. And androgynous is developed both male and female external. Yeah, it's very uncommon. Look, today I don't know what's going on. Chazal would have had a blast. We would have another 3 mesechtas, It's what goes on.
Aren't there other like mesechtas that's not part of the canon?
Yeah, we do. There are such things. And I think I said once about someone in the Besdin that was an androgynous. He was raised as a girl, and then when he got older, he became a boy, which according to Chazal is the correct way of doing it, because if he would marry a boy, if he would continue to be a girl and marry a boy, then that would be mishkav zachar. That would be a biblical prohibition. Mishkav zachar. It would be a homosexual relationship, which would be a biblical prohibition. But if he becomes a boy, then he marries a woman. So even if he really is a woman, because he's a doubt, so it's not a biblical prohibition. It's just 2 women, which is the Rambam, isn't. It's not recommended, but it's not a biblical prohibition to me. So that's the recommended halacha. So someone was telling this to me. I was raised as a girl, and then I'm so impressed because he's probably the only. He went to Beis Yaakov and whatever. He's the only man that knows Ramban al Torah. He went to Beis Yaakov. The boys don't learn Ramban al Torah. He went to a good girls' school. Okay. So.
It required surgery, right?
I don't think so. I think it's just hormones. I think it was just I don't think there was any surgery. Yeah, it's just extra.
No, but we're talking about androgynous.
An androgynous. Oh really? No, I think whatever.
I was just kind of looking it up. I know from the last time this came up. I remember this.
So Misha Chetzav Eved v'Chetzav Ben Chayrin. He can't be mighty someone else. He's half slave, half free. He can't be mighty someone else. So it's a little odd over here because the androgynous can be mighty another androgynous because the male part will fulfill the obligation for the other male part of the other person, and the female is whatever. And then when it comes to Chetzav Eved, Chetzav Ben Chayrin, it doesn't work like that. You can't say the free part of this slave is going to be mighty the other free, so it doesn't match perfectly these two cases. What's the pshat? Yeah, I guess it's a bigger mix in the Chetzav Eved, Chetzav Ben Chayrin, yeah, as opposed to the male and female of the androgynous. Amar Mar, yeah. Kol chayavim b'tkiyas shofar. The Gemara's Hakol, you're asking who's being excluded in the Hakol. Is Hakol always excluding? Is that how it works?
Should be asking who does it include.
Yeah, the Gemara is going to ask who is it including if everyone is there. If you list everyone, then you who else are you, right? Then you don't have to itemize them if everyone's there. Okay, let's take a look. Amar Mar, the truth is that females would be excluded because it's a mitzvah saseh shazman grama. But Amar Mar, the master taught, that means we was taught in the Brisa, Hakol Chayavim B'Tkiyah Shofar, Kayanim Leviyim V'Yisraelim. Gemara says, Pshita. It's obvious. They're all Jewish. But you have to say, what else? How else are you gonna itemize them? Then categorize. If it's not Kainim Leviyim Yisraelim, so who would be Chayav? So the Gemara says, no, Kainim it's Tzrichalei. There's a big chiddush here that Kainim are Chayav and Tkiyah Shofar. You hear? It says it's a day of blowing the trua. I would think only someone that's chayiv on Rosh Hashanah. He's the one that's chayiv. But someone that's chayiv, but the kainim, they have a blast of the shofar the entire year. They're blowing the shofar all year. Maybe they don't need this. This sounds like a kairach talis, or a house full of svarim or something. You really need the one day. Maybe you don't need to be mechayiv. Kamash malan that they have to have the shofar and Rosh Hashanah as well. Okay, that's the chiddush. Where it says midami hasam chatzaitzis v'hacha shofar. It's a totally different story. Over there, they're blowing in the trumpets. Huh?
So the other day, the trumpet's the long skinny one.
Yeah, that's right. Are you saying that it was a shofar that was long and straight? No, it was actually a trumpet and a shofar. Yeah, so it's a different instrument. No, we have a different source. The reason why the kayanim would be included. I could have entered your mind to say Yovel is the Jubilee on the 50th year on Yom Kippur. The davening and the blowing of the shofar on Yovel is the same as Rosh Hashanah, said except for that one phrase, Zahiyam Tchilas Masecha. But man di isa b'mitzvahs Yovel isa mitzvahs Rosh Hashanah. Whoever is included in the mitzvahs of Yovel would also be included in the mitzvahs of Rosh Hashanah. V'hani kayanim, when it comes to the kayanim, hayol v'lesna b'mitzvahs to Yovel, but they don't have the mitzvahs of Yovel. Certain details they don't have. The Tanan, it started in the Mishnah, Kayanim Leviyim Moichem Lailam v'Goyim Lailam. There's certain halachas that the Kayanim is different than it is with everyone else. What happens if someone is makdish a field is that it goes to hektish, and then he can redeem it back from hektish, and the hektish would take the money and he takes the field back. But he would only be able to do that until Yovel, because at Yovel, it ends up being the sale becomes like this hektish becomes complete and he can't redeem it anymore after that if he doesn't get it back. But by the Lakayanim, if they would do that, they could redeem it afterwards as well. So the Yovel doesn't affect them.
In the Yovel, doesn't everything go back to its rightful owners?
Yeah.
Or before the sales?
Almost everything, yeah.
Right.
Just about. And then also, what happens by a bias in Batei Yari Chaima? There's another halacha over here that you have 1 year to a house in a walled city. I think you have 1 year to redeem it, and after that year, it's sold forever. It's nechlat. It's nechlat. It's a final sale, not like a field. A field, all the fields go back to their inheritance, but a bias Batei Yari Chaima is nechlat. And if a kohen would sell his house, it wouldn't be nechlat. He would be able to still take it back. So I think that's the shot. Doesn't affect them the same way. There's certain details. Yeah, certain details that
inside.
Right, in a walled city. So because of that, I could have thought that maybe since there's a comparison Yovel to Rosh Hashanah, I would say only those that have all the laws of Yovel also have all the laws of Rosh Hashanah. But because Kayanim don't have all the laws of Yovel, so maybe they don't have the laws of Rosh Hashanah. It tells me Akol Chayavim B'Tkiyah Shofar Kayanim as well, that they have to come to Shul on Rosh Hashanah and hear the Shofar. We put that in the cards. Even if you're a Kayan, you should come hear the Shofar.
Yeah.
Okay. So Kamash Malan at the Chayiv as well. Okay, now it says Mishachetzev Eved Chetzev Ben Chayrin Ena Maitza Leis Mina V'Leis Ena Mina. Someone that's a Chetzev Eved Chetzev Ben Chayrin, he can't be he can't be mitzi someone else, not another chetzer v'eved v'chetzer m'chayin, not anyone else, because of the slave part of him, which is not mechuyev. Can't allow him. It doesn't allow him to fulfill anyone else's obligation. Amar Rav Huna ula atzmei mitza. Rav Huna says, but he can blow the shofar for himself. You hear? That's very nice. Even though, as he's blowing the shofar, half of those sounds are a chetz are a eved, but nevertheless, it's good enough. It's good enough because the part of him that's the ben chayrin, that he's free, is fulfilling the part of him that's free. So it works.
But it's only him for himself.
Him for himself. Amli Rav Nachman Rav Huna. Rav Nachman says to Rav Huna, "Ma'ishna lachirim delay." Rav Nachman has a good claim. He says, "Why can't he help someone else?" Because the part of him that's a slave can't be mapik, can't be mitzi. It's the Aramaic of mitzi. Can't be mitzi, the free part. So lots minami lo yasi tzarabdas today, mapik tzadcheres today. Look at what's happening. The part of him is blowing the shofar, his part of him is a slave. It can't help. That's the free part of him. Right? Half of him is blowing the shofar. There's two halves of him that are blowing the shofar, but one half doesn't help the other half. Right? Ella Amar Rav Nachman aflatzmi and mitzi. He can't blow the shofar for himself. He has to hear from someone else. Isn't that interesting?
So he might see himself. He might see did it. Two separate entities. Not being might see himself.
Yeah, we're viewing him like two halves. The half of him that's
Doesn't matter how many has to view as. One is not a separate entity. He's not being might see himself when he hears it. He's doing the mitzvah. He shakes full of an esrog. He might see
We're on
himself.
fire today. What happened?
Mitzvah of shofar is to hear it.
I
Or to
understand.
listen. So he has to listen to somebody who can perform the mitzvah. And he might not be.
It's your big bike ride, sir. Got you all fired up.
good point.
I know, it might be right, maybe right, because it's to hear it. So there's that split second fraction.
It's not a timing thing.
It's not about blowing it.
Let me just ask you, just to clarify. Let's say there's something that's the mitzvah is not to hear, the mitzvah is to blow. Let's say, we'll jump to another example. Kriyas Megillah. The mitzvah is to read the Megillah. There is also a mitzvah to hear the Megillah, but to read the Megillah is also a mitzvah.
You can't say it's a prophet because you're
No, but if I'm reading for a woman, I would switch the bracha. Al Mikra Megillah, could switch it to Lishmaya Megillah. It's not so pashut. It's machlekes. The Kitzur Shulchan Aruch and the Mishnah Berurah. It's not so pashut. Let's say, okay. So let's say the mitzvah is to read. Would the same issue come up? Would you say the same thing, that you can't, that the reader can't be mitzi even himself? Is it because he's blowing the sound and then it's coming back in, and the one that's blowing is not being able to be mitzi the one that's listening, or is it the same action itself that you follow? The way you're describing it is that there's two parts here. There's the blowing of the sound goes out of the shofar, comes into his ear, and then we say that 1 second, the person that blew the shofar wasn't able to be mitzi, so the one that's listening, and we view him as two people. Or maybe not. Maybe it's the blowing of the shofar. That's the issue, and he himself can't can't be yaitze with his own blowing, not because of it. That there's like two steps to it. You know what I'm asking? Anyway,
Bottom line is hearing.
you think that there's two steps to it?
There's a distinction in making that too fine.
Okay. So there's a machlekes here between Rav Nachman and Rav Huna if you can be mitzi himself, whatever the case is. He said Rav Nachman was a student of Rav and Rav Huna is a student of Rav. They're both students of Rav. Tani Ava No, I'm sorry. Tanya Nami Hachim Yishachetz Rev Chetz Ben Chayin Aflatzi and we have a brisa that supports Rav Nachman. Tani Ava Breder Reb Zera. Ava, the son of Reb Zera. I'm not so familiar with him. It doesn't sound like Ravada Barava, unless maybe it is. I didn't know that. We have an Amira Ravada Barava. Now we have an Ava, the son of Reb Zera. Yeah, Ava doesn't sound like, if you would tell it to me today, it didn't sound like a boy's name. Ava.
Oh, no way.
But here it's Breder of Zera. Okay. It says, Kala brachas kula nafapi sheyatza maitzi. All brachas, even though you were yaitza already, you can say it again for someone else. Chutz mi berchas alechem berchas ayayin, except for basically berchas anen, except for brachas that that are for enjoyment, that you have to have the enjoyment as well right now. And as I can say a maitzi, and no one else needs to say the bracha of a maitzi, even though the minhag and Chabad is that they do. But theoretically, I could say a maitzi, and no one else would have to say a maitzi. I said it for everyone. And yayin, which is the way we do it, when we make kiddush, one person says kiddush, and the other people drink. They don't have to say a bracha. Why? Because I'm drinking along. But if I wouldn't be drinking along, that would be a question. Because I'm drinking with, I was able to say the bracha. I was able to say the bracha because I'm drinking, and I can also only because I'm drinking can I say the bracha for other people. If I'm not being, if I'm not fulfilling, if it's not for me, then I can't say it for Shim Layatza. I'm not kiddush, I'm just talking about the yayin. The yayin of kiddush is going to come up in a second. So she'im la yatza maitzi, v'im yatza eina maitzi. If I'm fulfilling my obligation by these, if I'm eating as well, then I can say it for other people. And if I'm not eating as well, then I can't say it for other people. I have to be enjoying along. Boy, Rava, now Rava has a question. What happens to birchas alechem shel matzah, birchas hayayin shel kiddush hayayim? Mahu. That's a very interesting question. Because when it comes to the actual kiddush, that would be a birchas mitzvah. So let me just explain. We'll take a step back so it'll be clear. There's a concept of arvus. Arvus means that everyone is responsible for everyone else. So if there's a bracha on a mitzvah, let's say reading the Megillah or blowing the shofar. If I already blew the shofar, so I can then blow the shofar for someone else. I was yaitza already, but I was yaitza, but I'm responsible for him to hear as well. So I can say the bracha and blow for him as well, even though I was yaitza already. When it comes to food, so if I'm eating, so I can say a bracha, and other people that are eating as well can listen and say amen. But let's say I'm not eating. I can't just say shahakal or hamaitzi just because they're eating, because I don't have an arvus for them to eat. I don't have a responsibility for them to eat. I only have a responsibility for them for their mitzvahs, because we're all in this together. But when it comes to the food, unless I'm eating as well, then my bracha is nothing. If I'm eating, then my bracha is something, and then they could listen as well. So what happens to kiddush? Because by kiddush, I'm saying one is a birchas mitzvah, or mekadesh Shabbos, let's say, and then I also have a hagafen. So there's a yayin that's together with the kid. Now, if I don't have the yayin, I can't say kiddush. The kiddush itself would be no problem to say for someone else, even though I was yaitz already. I could say it over challah as well. But the question is, what about the challah? Let's say I'm not eating challah now. Can I just say the bracha because they're going to eat the challah, because it's challah from kiddush, or yayin for kiddush? Can I do that? Yeah. I'm not. Yeah. The same thing would apply for matzah. Forget about kiddush now. Let's go to another story. If there's a mitzvah to eat matzah, all right. So which is talking about the first night of Pesach. So the bracha on the matzah, there's two brachas then. One is alachilas matzah, one is hamaitzi lechem min haaretz. So the bracha of hamaitzi lechem min haaretz, can I say that bracha even though I'm not eating? But because that's a chelik of the mitzvah of matzah, so maybe it becomes like a birchsa mitzvah, and I can say it even though I'm not being yaitzer. Because what happens to that? Does it go into the category of the birchsa mitzvah of the arvas? Talking about that secondary bracha that goes along. Same thing with the wine and kiddush. Right. So kivan the chayvahu mapik, because it's an obligation, you could be mitzi. Idilma bracha lav chayvei, or maybe this bracha is not the obligation. This bracha is birchsa nanin. Tashema. So come and listen. Damar Ravashi ki avina beir of Papi. Ravashi says when I was in the house of Rav Papi having Makadosh lawn, he would say Kiddush for us. Medabra having Makadosh lahu. When his sharecropper would come from the fields, so he would say Kiddush for him, and he was yet to Kiddush already. Yeah, so he would say the brachas again for someone else. That means that the whole thing becomes one big birchsa mitzvahs. Yeah. What happens? It would be clear from this Gemara. The Daf Yomi is not halacha, but if you made Kiddush Friday night, then a guest shows up, and they can't make Kiddush for whatever reason, whatever. Can you make Kiddush for them? You already made Kiddush. From this Gemara, it's clear that you can say Kiddush. What about the Birchsa Gafen? You're saying a Bari Priya Gafen on wine that you're in the middle of drinking. You still have wine in your cup. You just took a sip. It sounds like from this Gemara that there's no problem because it's all a chelik of the chayva. All becomes a chelik. It sounds like it's no problem. Where it becomes a very interesting question is, what about Shabbos day? Someone shows up, you already made Kiddush. You're still drinking the wine. And someone shows up. What is the Kiddush Shabbos day? It's a Bari Priya Gafen. Can you then put up more wine in your glass and say another Bari Priya Gafen just for them, and so that they should be Yaitza Kiddush when there's no other bracha that goes along with it? Yeah, it's an interesting question, no? That's nothing. Page is nothing. Mom is nothing. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're not supposed to say that page?
No, I'm not
Okay,
saying
thanks.
you're supposed to say it, but it's not the Kiddush. It's not the Kiddush. It's not the Kiddush. It's clear from the Gemara Pesachim that Rav went to this place. He didn't know, or Rav Ashi went to this place. He didn't know what the Kiddush was. So he said, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam bar pri hagafen. And then someone started to drink. He says, okay, I guess it's over. And he drank. That was the whole thing. They told him, make Kedusha Rabbah. He says, I don't know what Kedusha Rabbah is, but I assume it starts with Hagafen like everything else. So he said Hagafen. He saw an old man drinking. So he said, okay, I guess it's over.
Quick question. I'm wondering, if Friday night example.
Yeah.
If the guest has come, it's already feelers, because feeler is already accepted.
Right.
Words.
Right.
Shabbos.
Right.
He doesn't need your Kiddush to accept Shabbos.
Right. Right. But you still have the din derabanan. I hear you're asking deraisa derabanan. You still have kiddush alayayin, you would have to say. Otherwise, you have Rabbi Kiva Eger's vart, where once you say good Shabbos, you were yotze kiddush midaraisa, according to Rabbi Kiva Eger. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
The rice, I thought Friday night was the rice and Shabbos one with kids the Rabbanan.
That's usually how it's understood.
So if that's how it's understood, then the answer to your previous statement, can you make another Brio Guffin? That would be like working on a suffix.
Maybe. I think we have to check it up. I think the halacha is that you're actually allowed to say Hagafen again. I think so. We have to check that out.
Look here, it actually says Kiddush Hayom.
Kiddush Hayom, no, but Kiddush Hayom actually means not different. It means Friday night. Yeah. Okay. Taner Rabbanan. La Yifres Sadam Prusa La Archem Elam Kenech Limayim. Yifres. Yeah, they used to call this to break bread. To break bread. Yifres means to say the bracha on the bread. to say hamaitzi. To the guests, you can't say the hamaitzi unless you're eating together with them. Very interesting. You're allowed to train children to say brachas even though you don't need the bracha. Usually there's an issue of a bracha levatala. You can't say the bracha if you don't need it. When it comes to chinuch, you can say the bracha with them even though you don't need it. When it comes to Halla, the Megillah, then it's a different story. Even though you were Yaitse, then you could be Mighty someone else. Yeah. The Megillah you could read for someone else. Today, I don't think anyone would be saying Halla.
When you're
Yeah.
teaching a child,
Yeah,
you say
very good,
Hashem's name.
I'm sorry?
When you do with a child, you say
Yeah,
Hashem's
when you do it with the child, you say Hashem's name. Yeah. Yeah, we're doing with an adult, it's more problematic. You should not say Hashem's name. Yeah, even if the adult is like a child, you still, yeah, you're not supposed to. You say Adai, you let them finish. With the child, you should try to do that as well, but it's not necessary. You can say the whole thing for them. Okay, Hadjan Lachru Bezdin. Siyata Deshmaya. Okay. We have a new parak. Yom Tov Shel Rosh Hashanah Shechal Yis B'Shabbos. If Rosh Hashanah is on Shabbos, the Mikdash Hayutaken Avalei B'Medina. Yitzi's thinking, I can't believe the Gemara took this from the Maimer.
Right.
There's a lot of Chabad discourses on this, it's explained that Shabbos accomplishes the same thing that the Shofar accomplishes, so it's not necessary to blow the Shofar on Shabbos. Is that what it says? No, they said Shabbos is Gematria Kugel. It says, but if you add it up, it's not. Shabbos is much more. Kugel is much less. It says, okay, so eat more kugel. Okay, so Yom Tov, that's Yom Tov Shel Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, that's on Shabbos. In the Beis English, they would blow, but not in the rest of the country. Rashi adds in that means not in Yerushalayim either. They wouldn't blow it in Yerushalayim either. It's not so clear, but that's what Rashi says. Mishacharav Beis Hamikdash, once the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, so there's no more blowing in the Beis Hamikdash. So Hiskin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, you taken b'chol makom sheish bezdin. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai instituted that if there's a bezdin, you still blow. We'll see why. Amar Rabbi Lazar is not so common in the Mishnayos. Rabbi Lazar is Rabbi Lazar ben Shemua. Lo Hiskin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai el b'yavne belvad, unless it's really Rabbi Eliezer, which is very common. He says that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai only instituted in Yavne. Yavne was where the Sanhedrin went after the destruction. That was one like major place, but not in every Bezdin. So they responded to him. They said Yavne and any other place. Now, why did they need to respond? They already said their opinion. I mean, they're not just like arguing back and forth like a parrot, you know. There's some arguments, they work like that. If there's a response back, then there must be another opinion. We'll have to see in the Gemara. Yerushalayim and Yerushalayim is even has an advantage over Yavne. What Yerushalayim means while the Beis Hamikdash was there. That's a bunch of details there. Any city that could see Yerushalayim, could hear Yerushalayim, was close to Yerushalayim, and could come to Yerushalayim. That's a lot of criteria. Taikin, in all of those places they would blow. In Yavne, you have to be in the Bezdin. We'll see what it means in the Bezdin. You know, Animili, where do you know this from? That Yom Tov Shel Rosh Hashanah that falls on Shabbos, you don't blow the shofar. Amar Rab Levi bar Lachma, Amar Rab Chama bar Chanina. This is a second generation Amayra in Eretz Yisrael. The first generation is his father, Rab Chanina bar Chama. This is his son, Rab Chama bar Chanina. Kasav Echad Aimer, one pasuk says Shabbos and Zichron Trua. Kasav Echad Aimer Yom Trua Yelachem. One says that it's a resting, it's a commemorating the blowing. One says it's a day of blowing. What's commemorating? So it says, like Kasha, Kam Yom Tov Shchalias B'Shabbos, Kam Yom Tov Shchalias B'Chol. It's a day of blowing if it's on a weekday. It's commemorating the day of blowing. It's commemorating the blowing if it's on Shabbos. Amar Rava, Imidaraisihi. if you're telling me that there's psukim here that tell me not to blow on Shabbos, the mikdash heichi takinan. Why did they blow in the Beis Hamikdash? It's supposed to be zichron shua. Why are they blowing in the Beis Hamikdash? Va'oid, and there's another issue. There's a complication here in the versions of the text. Some want to take out halav and they just want to read malacha de itzrich kra lemute. Is it a malacha that I need a pasuk to tell me that you're not allowed to blow? The Tana de Bei Shmuel, it was taught in the house of Shmuel. Apparently in Shmuel's yeshiva, they had a Tana there that knew brises by heart, and there was a collection of brises that he knew. That was like the Shmuel's library in the Tana's head. Right. So kol malechas avodah leisasu. You can't do any work on Yom Tov. Yatsa tkiya sheifer dias apas shichachma beina malacha. It's Shabbos as well. This excludes tkiya sheifer in removing bread from the oven, which is only rabbinic. There's no malacha there. It's just a chachma. It's a skill. It's not a work. Yeah. 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 I wish my job was like this. Just skill and no work. Okay. Yeah, what's the joke with the guy, the engineer? They had a problem in the building. So he makes they'd show him the blueprints. He makes an X somewhere on the blueprint. He says, okay, that will be $1,000. I said, what? Just one X on the blueprint? He says, well, 999 was for my education, and the $1 was for the X. Yeah, so it's a chachma. That's what it is. So it's not a real malacha, the blowing of the shofar. It's a skill. What does that tell us? That why do I need a pasuk to tell me that you don't blow it on Shabbos? Is it really a prohibition? I need a pasuk to tell me not to blow it on Shabbos? Yeah, it's a problem how to read this Gemara, because the fact is that if it wasn't a prohibition, then you would blow it on Shabbos. But the psukim are telling me that I don't blow it on Shabbos. So it's a difficult question. It's difficult to understand exactly what he's asking, because either way, it's like unclear. Like, what are you trying to say with this? Okay, Elam Rava says, Midaraisa Mishashari. You're right. Biblically, you're allowed to blow the shofar on Shabbos. And those psukim that you're quoting is just like a smachta. But Rabbanan Hu de Gazerbe, it's actually a rabbinic decree that you don't blow the shofar on Shabbos. Kidarabba, like Rabba taught. Rabba is Rabba Bar Nachmani. Dama Rabba, the Rabba says, everyone is obligated, but not everyone is an expert. Maybe he's going to carry it to an expert to teach him how to blow, and he's going to carry it 4 Amos and Rosh Hashanah. Yeah, there's all these questions. Why does he have to say 4 Amos and Rosh Hashanah? Why doesn't the fact that he's going to take it from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah? That's also Tosfos discusses. And that's the reason for Lulav, and that's the reason for the Megillah as well. And like Yitzi told us last time we had this in Masech the Sukkah, that the name Rabbah is the Seifei Tevis of Shofar, the Reish, Lulav, the Beis, Rabbah, and Megillah is the Hey. Those are the 3. He showed it to me in a note in the Mimer. Okay. Mishacharav Beis Hamikdash Yiskin Rabbi Yechim ben Zakkai Chulo. When the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Rabbi Yechim ben Zakkai instituted Tana Rabbanan. Pamachas Chol Rosh Hashanah Liyas b'Shabbos. One time, Rosh Hashanah fell on Shabbos. All the cities gathered together. This was after the destruction. Amalam Rabbi Yechim ben Zakkai lebnei Beseira. Rabbi Yechim ben Zakkai tells to the sons of Beseira. Sons of Beseira were the heads of the Sanhedrin. Nitka, he says, let's blow. Amrulai, they said to him, Nidan, let's sit down and discuss it. Let's make a meeting. Let's discuss the halachas. Should we be blowing now? It's not Yerushalayim. Amrulhem nitka v'achagach nidan. Let's first blow. We'll discuss it afterwards. La'achar shetaku, after they blew, Amar Loi Nidan, he said, okay, let's discuss if we did it correctly. Amar Lehem, Rabbi Yechim Zaki says, Kvarnishma Keren B'Yavne. I think that's a play on words because it was called Kerem B'Yavne, like the yeshiva today, Kerem B'Yavne. He says, we already heard the Keren B'Yavne, the horn was already blown in Yavne. And you don't judge afterwards. It will be embarrassing. What are you going to come out and say that we did it wrong? We did it already. It's over. Yeah. I learned this Gemara in 9th grade. It was yeshiva in Albany. Rabbi Yisrael Rubin was there. I remember I asked him about this Gemara, like, why, to explain Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai, like, why? He doesn't want to discuss it. He may be like, there may be an issue there. And they're telling we have to discuss it. And then, like, what was his? He says, we'll talk about it. Anyway, I see him in Crown Heights several years later. And he runs over to me on the street. He says, Eli, I have a sefer for you. I wrote about your question. And he gave me a sefer. It was on Pirkei Avos. And in there, he asked this question. He discusses this. Yeah, he is a brilliant about Tanaim, and he is. Anyway, okay. Amar Rabbi Elazar lehiskin Rabbi Yechim ben Zakkai el b'Yavne belvad. Rabbi Elazar says that Rabbi Yechim ben Zakkai only instituted it in Yavne, and not like the Tanakama that says that it was instituted in every Bezdin. Amar Loi, and they responded to Rabbi Elazar, Echad Yavne v'Echad Kol Makom Sheish Bezdin. Amar Loi, Hainu Tanakama, the Gemara says it's the same thing. What are they just going back and repeating? Sounds like an argument between two kids. They just yell back the same thing. Ika Beinayu, the difference is Beidina Da'akrai. No, they're actually saying something else. The first opinion said that if it's a temporary Bezdin, I don't know what a temporary Bezdin means. I guess maybe it means it's not the Sanhedrin, or maybe it means it's not a Bezdin Kavua, that they just meet sometimes. You also blow Kol Makom Sheish Bezdin, and the Amrulai is no, any place that has a Bezdin Kavua blows, but not a Bezdin Da'akrai. Okay. We need to. I guess I should stop here because the minyan is starting. Correct. Okay, we'll stop here.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a good day. Shavua tov.
Have a good day. Have good news.
Amen.